So I'd like to welcome you today to episode 6 of Proclamation Nation from proclamationnation.com. I am Ginger Snaps with the hard facts and
Mr. P, bringing the truth for free.
So today our episode is called "You Gonna Eat That?" Basically, it's about everything that's in our food and what we're consuming on a daily basis. So, a couple stats. We are the #1 nation in the world in terms of obesity, diabetes, cancer, mental disorders, and heart disease. And of course, we have the highest healthcare costs in the world. But do you ever think of why? It could ever be like, you are what you eat. So first, we're just going to break down maybe who controls the food. And a big name is Monsanto Group. And also, obviously, the USDA officials that are comprised of ex-Monsanto employees. And, again, FDA officials who also used to work for Monsanto. And if you want to learn more about that, I suggest there's on our resource page, there's a link to an interview with an FDA whistleblower with Dr. David Graham listed. So I would say watch that. But again, the very agencies that are put in place to protect us are made up of the very same people who pollute us, also known as Monsanto.
And what we have there is a revolving door. Case in point, Michael Taylor was Monsanto's former attorney. He was hired by the White House to go and had an FDA GMO policy that still stands today. And later, after he was successful, he went and became Monsanto's VP.
Obviously he did a good job, huh?
Conflict of interest,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit.
So Monsanto, now this company, they developed Agent Orange back, NAM, and they become the top player in, agricultural planning through technological and scientific manipulation of organisms, specifically E. coli. So we're going to talk about GMOs, or genetically modified organisms. They, of course, were patented by Monsanto for their use of in their Roundup brand, Roundup, spray your weeds with. They became more popular when they introduced Roundup Ready crops in 1996. So these GM plants are genetically modified plants, which now include soy, corn, cotton, canola, sugar beets. They've inserted genetic material from viruses and bacteria that allows the crops to withstand applications of normal, deadly Roundup.
And basically, when you go and you look at the GM crops, the corn and the soybean and stuff, what you have to consider is everything derived from those products, those crops. You have cornstarch, corn oil, corn syrup, corn flour, corn cereal, corn chips, soybean oil, a lot of the oils, even our sugar, most of the white sugar that we eat, put on our cereal, on our corn cereal, is a product of the sugar beet, the GM sugar beet. So there's really no escaping. In fact, they take up about 70% of the shelf space on our grocery store shelves, and there's over 125 different crops that are registered in the biotech database. So I imagine that's going to be even increasing.
Yeah.
But Leviticus chapter 19 verse 19 says, "Do not crossbreed domestic animals, and do not plant two kinds of seed in the same field." Basically, what the Bible says is that's an unholy thing to do. Okay, it's improper, it's unnatural, God doesn't like it, and basically we can expect maybe some consequences to follow. In Leviticus chapter 26, the consequences are listed. If we obey, we'll have a fruitful and abundant harvest, and if we disobey, we'll have famine and disease.
Well, that does make it very clear now exactly that we have crossed the line now.
We have.
So, how does that affect us? Okay, these GMO crops. They have this glyphosate molecule in that Roundup Ready stuff. It grabs these vital nutrients and it doesn't let them go. It's called chelation, and when applied to crops, it actually deprives these fruits and veggies of the vital minerals needed for healthy plant function. So, and it's also the same nutrients that glyphosate chelates, and it deprives that it deprives these plants of that also is vital for human and animal health. They include zinc, iron, copper, manganese, magnesium, calcium, boron, a whole slew of them. And deficiencies of these elements in our diets alone or in combination, they're known to interfere with critical, vital enzyme systems, and they cause a long list of disorders and diseases. So Alzheimer's, for example, is linked with reduced copper and magnesium. And Don Huber, he points out that this disease, since 1990, it's jumped by 9,000%.
Well, look at Don Huber is a retired colonel. He's no slouch. He's from the Purdue University emeritus professor. He's APS coordinator of the USDA National Plant Disease Recovery System. This guy knows his numbers. He sent a letter to Tom Vilsack, as Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, in January this year. And what he reported was that of 1,000 pregnant heifers, 450 of them had spontaneous abortions. Basically, they suffered a reproductive issue there. Okay. And then there's a woman, I hope you're a woman, Donna Arvanitoyannis from the Department of Forensic Medicine and Toxicology at the University of Athens. She reported that the animal toxicity studies show that the GM food can cause reproductive problems. So there you got some real official numbers and facts there. Jeffrey Smith is author of the bestseller book Seeds of Deception and Genetic Roulette. He claims that rodents fed GM soybean had severe reproductive issues, but not only the parent but also the offspring, with smaller babies, sterile babies, and half the babies died within 3 weeks. Also with hamsters, he reports that by the third generation most were unable to have babies. So they're all reproductive problems, and basically what these experts are reporting should strike a chord with all of us, because we all eat these GM foods. Granted, these were done on animals, these studies conducted. However, there was one study done, one and only one, on humans, and it was found that with the GM soy, the Bt toxin, and the Roundup Ready GM crops produced by Monsanto can successfully transfer to our own DNA in our guts and continue to function. So this means that long after we get rid of the GM foods, we will still have this dangerous modified protein produced within our own systems. Basically, we become a GM product ourselves.
Yeah, it is our own little plant.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, that covers our crops. You know, let's talk about our milk and our meat. You know, first of all, U.S. dairy cows, you know, they're being injected with what?
Recombinant.
There we go. I always mess this one up. So, bovine growth hormone, or RBGH. It was developed and manufactured by Monsanto, and it was genetically engineered. A genetically engineered hormone that forces cows to obviously increase their milk production by 10 to 15%. And this hormone has been linked to breast and colon cancer. And we're the only nation that allows this in our milk. So just in one glass of milk, it contains up to 20 painkillers, antibiotics, and growth hormones. And scientists have shown this. Their breakdown, actually published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, revealed that cow's milk contained traces of anti-inflammatory drugs, commonly used as painkillers. It also contained the hormone 17-beta estradiol, a form of sex hormone, traces of painkillers like ibuprofen and naproxen, and lots of other antibiotics. So basically, our girls, they're reaching puberty at a historic young age, and our children are developing asthma and allergies at a really rapid rate, and it's all because, and as well as like an antibiotic resistant, all because of what's put into our milk and our meat.
Most of these antibiotics are in there because the cows are suffering from painful and heavy inflammation called mastitis, and it reduces the swelling. So basically, my opinion is leave the cows alone, and you won't have those things floating in your milk.
That's right. Quick little story as far as my son. He at 4 years old had a chronic problem with ear infections, throat infections, sinus infections. So they decided to take his adenoids and his tonsils out. Well, on his checkup, they were still inflammation. So the next step was that he was going to have to, in 2 months, come back and get reevaluated and possibly have tubes put in his ears. And the doctor actually wanted to give him like a low dose of like antibiotic, you know, for 2 months straight. So basically, I found a report, not wanting to do that. I was digging and I found a report on educateyourself.com, and it actually kind of pinpointed this very same issue on how kids were having issues with this, all on account of dairy products, and especially milk from these types of cows. So this doctor, he took, the kids that were on the verge of getting tubes, already had, the same surgeries as my son, and took them off of that milk, and 75% of them didn't need tubes. So I had 6 weeks to go in this process. I basically weaned him off his antibiotic and got organic milk, and when I took him into the doctor, he was totally fine. Never had to have another surgery. So
what do you know?
What do you know? Now, in Isaiah 55:2, it says, "Why do you spend money for what is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy. Listen carefully to me, and eat what is good, and let your soul delight itself in abundance. So what else is there? Aspartame. And aspartame's in tons of candy drinks, lots of stuff. And it's genetically modified E. coli bacteria, which eats its own feces to produce the sweet-tasting waste product produced once again by Monsanto. And as a side note, aspartame was sold to Ajinomoto of Japan and a group of like former Monsanto executives and Michael Dell from Dell's Computer Consulting Investment Firm so that Monsanto could focus on another dangerous sweetener called neotame. And it's already in there too, so we'll talk about that. But aspartame, it's an excitotoxin. It's a neurotoxic chemical, and it breaks down into your body in both formic acid and formaldehyde. So would you want to drink a glass of formaldehyde? And lots of people do it willingly, can after can, poison their nervous system, going half blind, experiencing epilepsy, and increasing the onset of neurodegenerative diseases or disorders, such as Alzheimer's disease.
Again. Well, aspartame is addictive. If you don't believe that, try taking a can away from somebody who drinks it every day.
That's right, yeah. And if you don't see it listed in all these products, it could be because they reference it as a number now as well. So it's like 951, 950, 961 is the neotame now. And symptoms of a lot of this, if you drink a lot of this stuff or you consume a lot of this, is headaches, migraines, dizziness, seizures, nausea, numbness, muscle spasms, weight gain, rashes, depression, fatigue, irritability, tachycardia, insomnia, vision problems, hearing loss, heart palpitations, breathing difficulties, anxiety attacks, slurred speech, loss of taste, tinnitus, vertigo, memory loss.
Are there any other side effects left?
Joint pain, yeah. And it's also believed to trigger or worsen the following conditions: brain tumors, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, mental retardation, lymphoma, lots of birth defects, fibromyalgia, diabetes, and thyroid disorders.
Stop drinking diet drinks.
Yeah. So basically, now as a little side note, seeing how we're talking about E. coli feces, E. coli has these outbreaks. They've been leaving a lot of people sick, and some are dying. And this particular E. coli variation is a member of the O104 strain, and it's almost never resistant to antibiotics. So in order for them to acquire this resistance, they must be repeatedly exposed to these antibiotics and to provide this mutation pressure, which basically like nudges them towards complete drug immunity. So after being reverse engineered by some scientists in Germany from the Robert Koch Institute, they found that this form of E. coli was exposed to 8 classes of antibiotic drugs, which simply defies the law of genetic permutation and combination in the wild. So this couldn't have happened in the wild. It came from where? The lab, and now it's being sprayed all over your food.
Do you think they want to hurt us? Last week I read Psalm 56, verse 5. It says, "My enemies make trouble for me all day long, and they are always thinking up ways to hurt me." I think we're beginning to see that just how they're doing this in our day and age and in our grocery stores today.
That's right. Then we'll move on to hydrogenated oil, aka brain poisons, and they're present in half of all our foods found in every grocery store. They're listed as hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. And this artificial fat, it directly causes cardiovascular heart disease. It destroys normal cardiovascular health. It destroys like a healthy functioning of our nervous system. It causes brain disorders, heart attacks, birth defects, essential fatty acid deficiencies in both the mother and her fetus.
Well, there you go with the hydrogenated oil. You're looking at soybean, you're looking at corn, you're looking at basically the derivatives of the crops that are genetically modified, and that was one of the issues with the genetically modified food, was reproductive issues.
That's right, yeah. So if you go on to like MSG or monosodium glutamate, Dr. Balak, author of a highly recommended book called Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills, he says that MSG is an excitotoxin, so just like aspartame. So it means that it excites your cells to the point of damage. It acts as a poison. The second part of the equation is that MSG can be literally hidden in food labels under names like broth, casein, hydrolyzed, autolyzed, and more. So it makes it extremely difficult.